Welcome back to the University of Minnesota Center for Advanced Studies in Child Welfare and School of Social Work modules about addiction recovery in rural Minnesota. This is Module 3 of 3. I'm Nikki Tillman, co-author of the module with Dr. Amy Krentzman, and I'll be taking you through this final module. In this final module, we will cover resources specific to seeking and maintaining recovery in rural Minnesota. We hope that this module will give you a fuller picture of the resources available in rural areas, both for your own understanding and so you can better help your clients. We will discuss unique features of rural Alcoholics Anonymous and other 12-step programs. Additionally, we will discuss resources available outside of the 12-step model, such as recovery churches, non-12-step programs, and recovery community organizations. We will end this final module with a summary of the 3 modules and recommendations for practice. We will begin by discussing Alcoholics Anonymous and other 12-step programs. As a review from a previous year's module, let's discuss what Alcoholics Anonymous, referred to as AA, entails. AA is a voluntary, worldwide organization of individuals who meet to attain and maintain sobriety. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. An individual is a member if they say they are. There is no cost for membership or attendance. A basket is passed, and people put about $2 in the basket, but it is fine if they put $1, coins, or nothing at all. The basis of the program is total abstinence as opposed to harm reduction or reduced drinking. The meetings are run by recovering individuals themselves. The organizational structure is unique. The AA group is the main component of the organization. AA groups operate autonomously. Any 2 or 3 people gathered together can call themselves an AA group as long as they have no other or additional affiliation. AA is extremely widespread. As of 2017, there were an estimated 2 million members in more than 118,000 groups in 180 countries around the world. Since the beginning of AA in 1935, other anonymous 12-step programs have been started. They include Narcotics Anonymous, Gamblers Anonymous, Overeaters Anonymous, and others. These meetings may or may not be available in rural areas. The data from the Rural Recovery Study discussed in Module 2 tells us that AA in rural areas is unique. Rural AA meetings tend to be smaller in size than urban meetings. Many participants in the study stated that they had attended meetings in more urban areas and felt they were too big and they felt uncomfortable. They felt the small size of the meetings were an asset for rural AA. That being said, people who identify as a woman or non-binary, a person of color, are young, or do not speak English may find the small size of the meetings a challenge. They may not be able to find others who identify or look like them. As discussed in Module 2, an obstacle to rural recovery may be the lack of frequent meetings in some areas. Small towns may only have 1 meeting a week, which may or may not fit the schedule of an individual seeking recovery support. However, this varies greatly. Some small and smaller towns are considered recovery hubs. Often these towns have a good treatment center. People come to the town for treatment and choose to stay in the place where they achieved initial sobriety. The towns have supportive people, many AA meetings, and a recovery community. People in rural communities seeking sobriety often find social isolation and lack of access to meetings as barriers to recovery. In recovery hubs, individuals feel connected and part of a supportive community. Another unique feature of rural AA is both the need for rides to meetings and the willingness of AA members to provide rides for each other. Because of the population dispersion in rural areas and the infrequency of meetings, individuals may have difficulty getting to an AA meeting. If they are living in poverty or lost their driver's license, they face even more barriers to accessing recovery support, such as AA. Luckily, many participants in the Rural Recovery Study expressed that people at meetings are willing to help others get to those meetings. A final unique feature of rural AA will be familiar to those of you who practice or have practiced rural social work and/or child welfare. It is the issue of dual roles. That is, everyone is both a member of their community and a member of the anonymous AA group. This can prove especially difficult for individuals who are both treatment providers and in recovery themselves. Participants in the Rural Recovery Study with a dual role expressed the difficulty in finding meetings free of clients so they could feel safe to share. Likewise, so that their clients would feel comfortable sharing. Related to AA are Al-Anon and Alateen. Al-Anon and Alateen are anonymous programs for people with loved ones who are experiencing addiction. Al-Anon is for adults and Alateen is for youth. Because addiction is often a generational issue, some of the participants in the Rural Recovery Study identified both as in recovery from addiction themselves and as a relative of an addict or alcoholic. Several participants felt that Al-Anon was a better fit for them and their recovery needs. On the slide, you will see information from a brochure about the two groups. Some key points are that Al-Anon and Alateen are for the individual affected by someone else's drinking or drug use. The loved one of the person seeking Al-Anon does not need to identify as an alcoholic or addict. Further, active alcoholism or addiction in someone's life is not a requirement. Al-Anon and Alateen recognize that addiction has lasting consequences, both for the person suffering the addiction and for their family and friends. Family and friends may not seek support right away, but can always use the services of Al-Anon if they want them. Just like AA, where the only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking, the only requirement for membership in Al-Anon is that there be a problem of alcoholism in a relative or friend. If someone else's drinking feels like a problem to a person, even if only sometimes, they are welcome in Al-Anon or Alateen. Like in AA, Al-Anon is free of charge, and a basket is passed to collect some money to pay for expenses such as coffee and rent for the meeting room. Similar to the AA and other 12-step programs, it can be difficult to find Al-Anon and Alateen meetings in rural areas. To illustrate this, we will return to our example of St. Paul versus Northfield from Module 2. As you can see, on Wednesdays, there are 8 Al-Anon meetings in the city of St. Paul. In contrast, we have Northfield, which, as a reminder, has 2 colleges and around 20,000 residents in southern Minnesota. There are only 2 Al-Anon meetings available during the entire week. A potential alternative to in-person 12-step and related meetings are online meetings. Online meetings are available in a variety of formats, including email, online chat via text, audio and/or video, discussion forums, and through the phone. They are potentially a good option for individuals who live in communities without accessible meetings, have disabilities or conditions that prevent them from participating fully in meetings, or are ill and still wish to attend a meeting from home. In the Rural Recovery Study, participants overwhelmingly expressed preference for in-person meetings. It is possible this will change as young people who are more comfortable with technology get more involved in AA. For clients who express difficulty at accessing meetings for transportation or other reasons and are comfortable with technology, online meetings could be an important resource. Outside of AA and other anonymous 12-step programs, there is also a Christian-based 12-step recovery program available for those who want to combine their Christian faith with their recovery. A 12-step program not affiliated with AA is called Celebrate Recovery. Celebrate Recovery is a Christian-based 12-step recovery program. The founders adapted the AA 12 steps and utilized 8 recovery principles. Currently, Celebrate Recovery ministries exist in 35,000 churches around the world. As you can see from the map on the slide, Celebrate Recovery can be found in various communities around Minnesota. One difference between AA and Celebrate Recovery is that AA sees itself as spiritual but not religious. The majority of people from various religious faiths, and even agnostics and atheists, find that AA spirituality works with their own conceptualization of spirituality. Celebrate Recovery, on the other hand, is explicitly Christian. To help illustrate the differences between AA and Celebrate Recovery, compare the AA First Step and the Celebrate Recovery First Step and Bible verse pairing. The AA First Step reads, "We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable." The Celebrate Recovery First Step reads, "We admitted we were powerless over our addictions and compulsive behaviors, that our lives had become unmanageable." The accompanying Bible verse, Romans 7:18, states, "I know that nothing good lives in me, that is, in my sinful nature. For I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out. On the Celebrate Recovery website, it states that the program hopes to be a bridge between secular AA and Christianity. As opposed to AA principles which allow individuals to choose their own higher power, Celebrate Recovery recognizes only Jesus Christ as a higher power. Culturally specific programming is also an important resource. Wellbriety is a culturally based recovery program and movement for Native American and Alaska Native communities. It is rooted in Native principles and teachings for culturally based healing. White Bison is the nonprofit that facilitates Wellbriety, and a meeting list can be found on their website, including meetings in rural and small-town Minnesota. A council of elders from a variety of Native American nations guides the Wellbriety movement. Two of the differences between Wellbriety and other recovery programs are the ideas of the 4 seasons of recovery and the medicine wheel 12 steps. The idea behind the 4 seasons of recovery is that life happens in 4-year cycles, and so does recovery. The first year of recovery is the spring. You are budding and seeing new change in yourself. The second year is summer. You start to see change and settle down. The third year is fall. You feel beautiful like the changing leaves and want to stay that way forever. The fourth year is winter, where the leaves fall and it feels like things are falling apart. You lose your sense of purpose, identity, and direction. Everyone must go through winter to grow and renew, just as oak trees need to lose their leaves to gain a new shape. What follows is then a 16-year cycle where the first 4 years of recovery are survival, the second 4 years are choice, the third 4 years are influence, and the final 4 years are mastery. The Medicine Wheel 12 steps are based in both the medicine wheel used by many Native communities for teaching about life and the 12-step program of Alcoholics Anonymous. In the medicine wheel steps, each step is associated with a main value. For example, step 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol and that our lives had become unmanageable, is associated with honesty. Each step is also part of different things you find as part of recovery, including the Creator, steps 1 through 3, yourself, steps 4 through 6, your relationship with others, steps 7 through 9, and the wisdom of elders, steps 10 through 12. Individuals who want Christian-focused recovery services can also look to recovery churches. While churches have long been a popular location to hold AA and other 12-step meetings, a newer phenomenon is recovery churches. Recovery churches go beyond hosting meetings and instead have a sole focus on recovery for their church services. They are community-led and/or directed. On the right-hand side of the slide, you will see information from the United Methodist Church about why church leadership supports abstinence programs for drugs and alcohol. They cite supporting the whole person and families, as well as the church's responsibility to help those who are suffering. One church in Minnesota is called the Recovery Church and is located in St. Paul. According to the church's office manager, there are very few recovery churches in the state. The Recovery Church has members attend from all over Minnesota and Wisconsin. The mission of the church is, we are a spiritual community for people in search of growth and healing and recovery. The Recovery Church operates under a set of guiding principles which interested parties could use to set up a recovery ministry. At the church, much like at an AA meeting, all members have a voice. Services are led by rotating volunteers from the community instead of an appointed leader. The church identifies as Christian and is connected to the United Methodist Church, but it does not require that members subscribe to the principles of any one denomination. Also, much like an AA meeting, the church operates with as little structure and staff as possible. Finally, the main guiding principle for the church is the AA Responsibility Pledge, which reads, I am responsible when anyone, anywhere reaches out for help. I want the hand of AA always to be there, and for that, I am responsible. Some ministries may be unable to be recovery-focused 100% of the time, but can hold recovery services. An example is the recovery service at St. Peter's Episcopal Church in Casson, Minnesota, a small town near Rochester. The church holds a recovery-focused service on one Wednesday per month. The Dodge County Drug Court allows individuals to count the service as an attended AA meeting. We have shown how rural Minnesota is majority white and is comprised of older folks. Christianity is also the dominant religion. Therefore, those in rural areas who are not Christian may not find others from their faith tradition who are also in recovery. 12-step programs are very popular and they work very well for people who like them. Some people do not like 12-step programs for a number of reasons. For individuals who do not want to attend a 12-step meeting but still want group support, there are other options available. These options are also secular and do not involve a higher power of any kind, which may be more appealing to some individuals. We will cover 2 examples of available options for non-12-step programs. SMART Recovery is an alternative to 12-step programs. SMART stands for Self-Management and Recovery Training. SMART Recovery is similar to AA in that it hosts free support groups for individuals seeking help with addiction. It is aimed at individuals dealing with addiction and their loved ones. SMART Recovery has a reach of 2,800 meetings each week in 23 countries. Additionally, SMART Recovery has 30 online meetings weekly and 24/7 access to chat rooms and message boards. There are some important differences between 12-step programs like AA and SMART Recovery. SMART Recovery does not have a spiritual component and accepts multiple pathways to recovery besides immediate, complete abstinence. It does not have sponsors and encourages members to spend months or years in meetings, but not a lifetime. Women for Sobriety is another secular non-12-step program. The main programming of WFS is called the New Life Program. As participants move through the program, they reach different levels of recovery which are associated with different acceptance statements. For example, the first level of recovery is acceptance of having a substance use disorder, one that requires the cessation of substance use and is associated with an acceptance statement about addiction, the damage caused by addiction, and the need for time and support to recover. The motto of Women for Sobriety is release the past, plan for tomorrow, and live for today. It is women only, and while it emphasizes an individual path to recovery, like AA, the program also emphasizes total abstinence from substances. WFS believes the core of alcohol and substance use disorders is the need for feelings of self-value and worth. The New Life program therefore focuses on these ideas through positive reinforcement, positive thinking, relaxation, meditation, diet, exercise, and group participation. The meetings are anonymous, have a structured format, and are donation-based. Groups are run by a certified moderator who has at least 1 year of sobriety and an understanding of the New Life program. At the end of the meetings, participants stand in a circle, join hands, and recite, "We are capable and competent, caring and compassionate, always willing to help another, bonded together in overcoming our addictions." For those who cannot access a Women for Sobriety meeting in person, WFS has online chat rooms, a message board, and a phone number available. Another growing trend in recovery is the Recovery Community Organization. Recovery Community Organizations, or RCOs, are centers created by and for the recovery community to support people in their addiction recovery. RCOs exist to fill the gap in services after treatment. Individuals in recovery often experience, as we have discussed, a need for positive sober activities and support after leaving addiction treatment facilities. They do not yet have a way to fill their time that they used to spend using. RCOs are a way for newly sober people to fill their time in positive ways and for all individuals in recovery to continue to give back to others. Recovery community organizations provide policy advocacy, community education and outreach, and peer-based recovery support services. It is important to note that they are not treatment providers and do not provide professional assessment, addiction counseling, or clinical services. Nationally, there is an association of recovery community organizations as part of the organization Faces and Voices of Recovery. It defines RCOs as independent, nonprofit organizations led and governed by representatives of the local communities of recovery. As of 2007, there were over 175 RCOs in the United States, which includes the 6 in Minnesota. RCOs operate on a variety of levels of intervention from the individual to the community to policy advocacy. The 8 core strategies of RCOs, as defined by Valentine, White, and Taylor in their 2007 paper, include building strong grassroots organizations, advocating for meaningful representation and voice, assessing needs, educating the public, policymakers, and service providers, developing human and fiscal resources, advocating for policy changes, celebrating recovery from addiction, and supporting research. An important component of RCOs is peer-based recovery support services. Like other individual and community-based services of RCOs, they exist to bridge the gap between a clinical treatment episode and long-term recovery. There are many different ways that peers can support each other through RCOs, including recovery coaching, helping access housing, transportation, vocational training, and employment services, providing recovery support over the telephone or through support groups, helping navigate systems related to recovery, providing recovery resources, providing life skills training, and arranging for sober social activities and community. In Minnesota, there are currently 6 RCOs that provide a wide array of important services to people seeking and maintaining sobriety throughout the state. 4 are located in the Twin Cities area and 2 are in Greater Minnesota. Unfortunately, northern Minnesota and much of western Minnesota do not have an RCO at this time. This information is current as of June 2019. Please look on the Association of Recovery Community Organization websites under Minnesota for the most current list, as RCOs are a growing trend. It is important to stay up to date to provide the best information to your clients. The 4 RCOs in the Twin Cities area are Minnesota Recovery Connection in St. Paul, Continuum Care Center, also in St. Paul, Twin Cities Recovery Project in Minneapolis, and Minnesota Alternatives, Inc. in Spring Lake Park. All provide different types of services which can be found on their individual websites. Both RCOs in Greater Minnesota are located in southern Minnesota. Recovery is located in Mankato, and Recovery is Happening is located in Rochester. Like those in the Twin Cities, they each provide different community services which can be found on their individual websites. Unfortunately, many RCOs are located in metro areas, and you may be asking how they can serve your clients in rural areas and small towns. First, some RCOs are located closer to and are more accessible to rural areas and small towns than others. For example, it may be easier for clients in rural areas of southeastern Minnesota to reach the Recovery is Happening 5K in Rochester than one in Minneapolis. A second service provided by some RCOs is telephone support. Trained volunteers in recovery themselves call people who are seeking to initiate and maintain recovery throughout the state once a week to provide support and resources. This service can be a wonderful option for people feeling isolated and or those who cannot travel easily to meetings and other methods of support. It is provided by Minnesota Recovery Connection and Recovery is Happening. Finally, RCOs provide access to a network of people in recovery through volunteering, policy advocacy, outreach, sober events, and support groups. They are an important point of access for people looking to build their recovery community. We will end with a summary of the 3 modules and important takeaways for practice. During the modules, we have covered how rural areas and small towns are unique. There are strengths and challenges for those seeking to attain and maintain recovery in our rural communities of Minnesota. It is important for people working in those areas to understand how to help their clients dealing with substance use disorders, to leverage the strengths of their communities, and how to best meet the obstacles. Substance use affects families involved in the child welfare system and is becoming increasingly relevant in child welfare practice. Some challenges and obstacles to recovery faced by those in rural areas, as identified by the participants in the Rural Recovery Study, include population dispersion, scarcity of 12-step and other recovery meetings, stress of coming home from treatment, finding it hard to make new and non-using friends, lack of access to positive sober activities, small town-based gossip, and the lack of diversity present in recovery systems. Strategies for success in maintaining recovery in rural areas, as identified by the participants in the Rural Recovery Study, that leverage the strengths of rural communities and meet the challenges include finding rides and carpooling to meetings and events, skill building, including asking for help, helping others who seek to attain and maintain recovery, finding and participating in positive sober activities, and utilizing formal and informal systems of helping. We also covered the nature of 12-step and non-12-step programs in rural areas and how your clients may access these support systems. Finally, we discussed recovery community organizations in Minnesota and how RCOs are an important resource for people in recovery, bridging the gap between formal treatment and the community. Based on our research and the words of our participants in the Rural Recovery Study, we have recommendations for practice. It is important to remember that while recovery in small towns and rural communities can be challenging, many resources are available to help. Becoming familiar with these resources is a great way to help your clients. You can also help your clients build their recovery skills, such as asking for help. For example, you could role play asking an AA member for a ride to a meeting. As appropriate, you can help clients find their way to religion-based and/or culturally-based recovery support programs such as Celebrate Recovery, recovery churches, and Wellbriety. After completing this module, you can find the closest recovery community organization to your practice. Review their services and see how it can help your clients through services such as telephone outreach. Though the participants in the Rural Recovery Study did not often use the online and telephone recovery support, both are plentiful and can be an important resource for those who are more isolated from in-person services. Online and telephone recovery support and meetings exist and may be underutilized in rural and small town communities. To get specific meeting and service recommendations for clients in your area, contact AA, NA, and the nearest RCO. Finally, you are in a unique position to lend hope and optimism to your clients. Help them see that many get and stay sober in small towns. Reputations do change. Sober community members can be a source of support and encouragement for those who need sober peer support and sober friend groups. Small town and rural recovery communities are small but supportive. Many in meetings will gladly offer rides, carpool to distant meetings or sober events, and show your clients how recovery can be fun and positive. To end, we will briefly review the main points and takeaways from these modules. People successfully get and stay sober in rural areas and small towns in the face of unique challenges. While it can be difficult to distance yourself from former friends and family who still use drugs and alcohol, and challenging to make new sober friends, it is possible to do so through 12-step and other community supports. There are many community resources that we have reviewed here and beyond that can provide benefits to your clients. Rides to meetings and carpooling provide two purposes for recovery. First, they provide physical access to distant meetings. Second, they provide an opportunity to bond with others in recovery while traveling. Finally, you can support your clients by becoming knowledgeable about the wide range of recovery resources. The following 3 slides show the references used for this module. Thank you for your attention to the 3 modules. If you have any questions, please direct them to Dr. Amy Krensman at the University of Minnesota School of Social Work. Thank you again for everything you do to help children and families in the state of Minnesota. We hope this series of modules are helpful to you in your continuing practice.